you all for joining us.
Are we ready to get started?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan, and I want to thank you all for joining us today for ACMA's Building Pathways. This will be our second career empowerment webinar, this time focused on peer professionals in film and media, made for students who are navigating their way into the film and media industry space. And we hope that by the end of the hour, you'll have a better sense of what you might need to do to prepare yourself for the next steps in your career.
Awesome. My name is Jasmine, and I'll just be going over our agenda really quick. First, we'll spend around 5 to 10 minutes getting to know our panel. Then we'll take some time to speak to each panelist about their own journeys, advice, and experiences. Then towards the end of our event, we'll include a Q&A session where all of you will be welcome to share your questions through the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can submit your questions throughout the event, but we won't answer them until the end. And for those of you who have submitted questions beforehand, we'll be getting to those at the end as well. And so just a little bit about myself. My name is Jasmine Nauta. I graduated from UC San Diego this past June, and I work with Asian Culture and Media Alliance as their digital marketing assistant.
And to introduce myself, my name is Megan Shimizu, and I also graduated from UCSD this past June with a major in communication and a minor in writing and literature, and I now work with ACMA as an assistant teacher for their Take One internship program. And now we'll go ahead and introduce our amazing panelists.
Super cool. All right, I'd just like to introduce our first panelist. Her name is Chi Fan. Chi is a UCSD alumni and a current student at the American Film Institute for Production, or you just finished. We just went over that. And Chi,
so in the second year, yeah.
You can say hello and just tell us about like what you do.
Hi everyone, it's my pleasure to be here. So I graduated from UCSD last year, and now I am still at AFI, American Film Institute, studying producing.
Awesome, thank you.
And next, I'd like to introduce Esther Chung, a Sheridan College alumni and current animator and illustrator for Giant Ant Media Production. We have a short clip of some of her work to share with you all, and then after, Esther will say hello, but there's a short warning. The video might lag a little bit, but we just really wanted to showcase her work.
All right. And I'll be sharing that with you. Can everyone see that? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, thank you. That was super cool.
Esther, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Sure, yeah. I'm working at Giant Ant right now, and I graduated from Sheridan. As said, I guess I work on commercials most of the time now, and I mostly animate, but I also do illustration and storyboards. Yeah.
Thank you, Esther.
All right, and finally, we have Shayna Guraya, a USC School of Cinematic Arts alumni in film and TV production, and currently just finished working with the Academy's Gold Program for Production. We also have a short clip of her work to share with you all. And then Shayna, you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more after.
I could turn the hourglass over, if I could set the clock back, it wouldn't change a thing. I know that. I know that. And when I look at the world around me, I see what might have been, but every deed has got a price tag. Now I know that.
Awesome. Shayna, would you like to share a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so that was a clip from a music video I directed about a year ago now. And I just finished with the Academy Gold internship and am now moving into development on my first feature film.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, we're just going to get into it and get started with the individual questions for each of our panelists. We're very excited to hear from you all. And I'll go ahead and start off with Chi. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did before AFI? Like, did you do any projects or what did you do like during undergrad?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in China till I was 18, and then I went to UC San Diego to study visual arts media with a focus in film and video making. Then I graduated UCSD in 2019, and I applied to AFI before I graduated and got in through the waitlist. And then I went to AFI straight afterward. And now I'm finishing my last year at AFI. The projects I did before AFI was mostly for my undergrad classes. I did some narrative shorts, experimental documentary shorts. Most of them were done by myself. So I was doing directing, producing, doing cinematography, and editing, well, all in guerrilla style at that time. Until my junior year, I started to work with my classmates on several short film projects. And slowly I got into more of a professional setting of smaller film crews. So that was basically it.
So what is the AFI program like? Like kind of what's the day-to-day like? What kind of projects were you working on?
Yeah. So I would say AFI's program, it's a pretty intense program. It's 2 years, 1 year shorter than most MFA film programs. But I would say it's perfect for those who want to get something out of film school faster and with fewer expenses. And also at AFI, we have declared tracks. So the education is more focused for different majors. So we have producing, directing, cinematography, production design, editing, and script writing. And for the producing discipline that I'm in, we start from the basics of line producing, preparing budgets and schedules, and then we'll dive into script development, marketing, film businesses, and etc., and learn about the different paths that a producer could choose. And we would learn from the different industry guest speakers and also learn about basic writing, director and directing techniques. And while we take classes, we need to handle productions at the same time and oversee the productions from script to post-production. And I'm in my second year, which is the last year. And right now I'm also developing my producing portfolio and my own feature project. And while doing an internship, while dealing with other classes, homework, and my thesis project. So it is pretty intense. It's a lot, but you will definitely learn a lot and flourish out of it.
Thank you. That sounds like such a great, like comprehensive program, but definitely sounds like it's keeping you very busy. Thank you for sharing, Chi. So I'm going to move on. I have a couple questions for you, Esther. So as a multidisciplinary artist, what kind of pieces are in your portfolio? Like, are they mostly from school, work you've done as a freelancer, competitions, passion projects? Kind of what does that look like for you?
I think for me, it's mostly been, at least when I was in school, it was mostly work that was my own, that was not school projects. I maybe had like one assignment that was in my reel that was in school. But usually, typically, I just try to do my own stuff and put all my own stuff into my portfolio and my reel because I think it showcases my own style more so. And I can just take the elements that I learned from school and then apply them to my own, in my own sort of way. So then like employers will get an idea or a better idea of what I'm about, I guess. Yeah. But nowadays, I guess, I mean, I'm currently at Giant Ant, so I'm not looking. So I haven't really updated my reel or my work in a really long time. But I try to keep, usually our industry lives on Instagram, and it's kind of annoying. It's kind of funny though. So I always just keep updating, like I update with work stuff and I update with my own stuff. I just like throw it all up there. So then people know what's up. Yeah.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about like how you found your way to Giant Ant, or like how was the transition from freelancing to like a media company? I know like a lot of personal people who like are trying to get into animating or illustrating. So like how did you find your way there?
Yeah. I went to school for animation. So I went to Sheridan College specifically for animation, and it's a 4-year program. So I kind of did that all the while I was like freelancing on the side as well, like concurrently doing both of them. And so the transition to Giant Ant wasn't actually that crazy, like out of school, because I was already working. It was just my first like full-time job. Like it was just like switching from school, but like school was a crazy workload too. So it wasn't really different in that case. It was actually kind of nice because I had like, it was 9 to 6, and it's just like very much set instead of like school, which is like 8 a.m. to like midnight or whenever you have to do everything plus work on top of it. So it was like way crazier in school. So like transitioning out of that, it was actually quite nice. I was like, oh, I have boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was something that was quite
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Sorry. Did you ever feel like when you transitioned, like your job ever like compromised your personal style as a creator, or did you like implement that like when you brought your personality and your creations?
I think Giant Ant has been super, super great. And the people I work with have been really great. That it's both. Like in animation, you're always working with different people's styles. So that's kind of a given in a way, just because of the nature of the job. But they've been super awesome that they've let me, I guess, kind of incorporate my own style in there, which is really awesome.
And then kind of going back on what you said, I know you did freelance work before. How did you kind of find those jobs? Like what was the job search like, and how frequent were they? What was that experience like?
Honestly, it's like I think I'm like the worst person to ask about that because I don't really hunt for my own jobs. People just kind of message me, or like they'll find me out of the blue, sort of. So that's like I guess it's well, my first freelance gig was through a friend who knew somebody who needed stuff, and I was like, great. So then that's how I started, and then after that, yeah, I never really looked for jobs. I just get a email in my inbox or like a message on Instagram or something that they're like, hey, I seen your work, or I heard somebody told me about your work and you'd be a great fit for this. So I think it's mostly just knowing people who know people who know people.
All right. Thank you so much. I know a lot of people who I don't know why I know so many people who are trying to become like animators and illustrators, so I'll be sure to relay. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to some questions for Shayna. So the first question I have for you is, having completed your undergraduate degree in political science, at what point did you realize you wanted to redirect your educational journey by pursuing a master's in film and TV production?
Yeah, so I initially started off like my undergrad degree in political science, and I kind of fell into film. So what happened was I was studying political science because I myself am a wheelchair user, and you can't see it, so it's a little odd right now. But basically, I wanted to make a difference for people with disabilities, and I wanted to do that through policy changes, right? Going to the Capitol, like making a difference. And I live in Sacramento, and so it's like at the heart of lawmaking here in California. But what I realized early on was that there is so much red tape and things don't happen as fast as, you know, they probably should. And so at my own college in particular, there were instances where people with disabilities weren't getting the services that they needed in order to succeed at college. And so I was really upset about that. And I kind of took it into my own hands and tried to do things like the policy route, and nothing changed. And so I was like, you know, I have all these, you know, I have social media, right? Why don't I just create something small and see if that can make a difference? So I bought a GoPro, a really inexpensive camera, stuck it on my wheelchair, and just went around campus and filmed for about 6 weeks continuously. And then I ended up like making notes about like what parts I wanted to use, and basically picking out the best parts in order to tell a story. And then I wove those together with interviews from other people with disabilities on campus and their experiences. And then I released it one night thinking, you know, we'll just see what happens, right? Nothing might come of it, but I had fun, told a story. We're putting ourselves out there. And it got over 1,000 views like in one night. It was nuts. It just spread like wildfire. And we ended up getting huge changes made. And so after that, my professors took a look at me and they were like, you should go into film. And so I transitioned into communications, since it allowed me to take some film classes. And then they encouraged me to apply to USC Film School, which I did, and I got in.
So, what was the transition like, even going from your like undergrad to graduate, and even now after graduate school to working on your own projects? What is it like going from like one educational setting to like fully pursuing film?
It's intimidating. Like going from undergrad to USC Film School it was like the hardest decision I've ever made, because I didn't come from like a film background, right? And so my professors, honestly, it was their encouragement. And it was the fact that like the people in my cohort at USC for the MFA program, a lot of them also hadn't done film in undergrad. And so they were fairly new as well. And so I think like, honestly, it was my cohort that made me solidify my plans to go to USC. So my professors pushing me in the cohort. And also because they had the same goals like with their work, right? They wanted to make a difference. And I want to do that in mine, though not necessarily through documentary, which I found out throughout USC that I preferred making comedies, right? Fictional comedies. And so now that I've graduated, again, it was like really intimidating, and I didn't really know what would happen, especially I graduated in May, so during pandemic. And I have thankfully just been getting work, freelance jobs. I've been editing for work on the side, but also I've been getting opportunities for my scripts. And my feature script got a producer attached to it, and we're moving forward with that. And I really think it's because our stories haven't been told, right? Like our stories, in particular, minority stories, need to be told right now. And there's a huge push to get that out there.
Yeah, so just like building off of that, why do you think film is a powerful medium for activism? And like, what kind of stories do you want to tell as a filmmaker who is passionate about creating positive social change that like maybe you haven't already?
Okay, so the first part, I think film is hugely informative and like influential in society, because I think it creates empathy and I think it builds empathy, right? You're spending a certain amount of time with a certain intimate amount of time with a group of people on screen. And so I really think it's that empathy card. And then I guess the second part of that question is the films that I want to make tackle subjects that haven't really been talked about before. Like the music video goes over like the sexual abuse against women with disabilities, right? It's a topic that hardly nobody talks about. And there aren't many studies done on it. And so I like to talk about those issues, but put them in creative and engaging mediums. And film allows us to do that, right? It's not like a big book or a big study that people have to read. And then another part, and then I'll stop rambling because I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. But I feel like films are so accessible, especially now in this digital age, right? Like I can make a film here and it can be seen by someone in India. And that is so powerful right now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like a lot of what like film can be is like doing what you're passionate about, sharing stories that you're passionate about. So that is very important. All right, so now we're gonna move on to our roundtable questions. Every question that we ask will be open to our panelists. So if you have something to say, just say it. And then if nobody says anything, we'll kind of just like beckon you. It's okay. We're not gonna like try to attack you or anything, but just get to know you. So the first question is to all of you, what has been your favorite or most memorable project that you've worked on so far? If anyone wants to go first. Chi?
Sure, I can go. Well, I would say it's actually a promotion video that I made when I was in high school, and it was for a rock band that I was in. I was back in China, and we had this rock band in our school, and where we would try to do some like cool performances while maintaining a good relationship with the school and our teachers, and trying to not be too rebellious or anything. And when I became the leader of the band, I decided to make a video to promote our band for recruitment. So I planned the whole thing and shot it on a Canon 550D or something, and with a tripod, and edited the video with a very basic editing software, something called Coral Video Studio. And now I look back at it, the quality was really bad, but I was quite happy about it at that time. And it was during the process of making a video, I realized that I have this passion in media and content creating, and it was the reason why I decided to later apply to UCSD and then now continue to pursue a degree and career in film. Yeah.
That's so great. I mean, you all start somewhere, right? That's so cool to hear. Anyone want to go next?
I can go. I think my most memorable project was my thesis film from school that I did. It's like a 4-minute long film about Hong Kong, or like inspired from my parents in Hong Kong and like 70s era Hong Kong. And I think it was it was like the longest form project I ever done. And I think it was most memorable because I spent like 8 months in production, like the entire school year on production. And then afterwards, it was really interesting, and it like it did its like festival circuit, and then it was like really cool to see how much impact it had, and like kind of like what Shana was saying, it's like you can reach all over the world. Like it's crazy because like my film went to Taiwan, and then I went to Taiwan, and I was like, whoa. And then it also screened in Hong Kong and in like Europe and a bunch of countries, and like in the States, and then in Brazil. And it was just like kind of crazy. So it was just like seeing the impact that it had and like how people resonated with it, and it kind of just like went all over, was like kind of cool.
One of my favorite projects that I've worked on was my first film at USC, which was called Wheelchair Wendy. And I used dolls, like Barbie dolls. They weren't Barbie dolls, but they looked like them. And we had people puppeteering the dolls, like they were actually playing with them. And it was just so ridiculous. And I remember at the time it was a huge risk, but it ended up becoming my calling card. And I'm getting, okay, they'd like me to talk about the feature film. I'm getting a message. And so I can add more about that now, if that's okay. Cool. So yeah, that kind of ties into it. So that weird quirky film with dolls ended up being my calling card to make this feature film. And the feature film is called Aag. It means fire in Punjabi. I'm Punjabi Indian. And it's about a conservative Punjabi family who decides to trick a man into an arranged marriage by hiding their daughter's disability. However, the daughter, Aag, has schemes of her own. Being held captive in a room for most of her life, Aag decides that the wedding is the perfect time to enact revenge against her abusive family. Will her violent yet still tasteful plan help her move from victim to survivor, or is it just going to consume her? And yeah,
That's so cool. I would definitely love to see that film. So, this is kind of so like talking about working on your own personal projects. What advice would you guys have for students who are looking to build their portfolio, but while they're still in college? So, how do you create that balance of working on school assignments, maybe working on like freelance work, and then also having time to build things that they could put in their own portfolio that reflects what they're actually passionate about? Esther, do you want to kind of start with that since you touched upon it earlier?
Sure. I think, I don't know if this is a good thing to say, but I think school's only as good as school's gonna get you. Like, I think it's there to teach you principles. And so, but if everybody's gonna do the same assignment, you're gonna come up with very similar outcomes because it's all the same prompt. And so I think it's there to teach you stuff. So I don't know, the way I prioritized it was I prioritized my own, like I prioritized school so that I could get a grade and I could get a degree. But I prioritized my work, like my own work, because of the fact that it's the stuff that people's gonna like, employers and people are gonna look at and be like, oh, that's actually different because it's not like a ball toss. Because everybody's gonna have a ball toss if they're at that same level. So you gotta like kind of elevate it and then take it and do your own thing. So that's kind of how I always like made time to work on my own stuff. And then that's kind of like freelance. I mean, I guess that's just time management at the end of the day. But like, I think prioritizing your own stuff, because that's the stuff that's going to get people to notice you and notice your stuff. And it's the stuff that shows other people like who you like, what you're actually about, like on top of just like plain skills. Yeah.
Thank you, Esther. I think that's really great advice. Chi, what about you? How did you build your portfolio while also maintaining your schoolwork and other projects that you were maybe assigned to do?
Yeah, well, just going off of what Esther was saying, I think my experience would speak more towards international students who wouldn't have the ability to work outside of school. So I would definitely say you should take the opportunity from a class project, even if it's only for a class, through that project to build your own voice and take the class project seriously. So if it's good, it can definitely be a good addition to your portfolio. Because my portfolio, when I applied to the film program before I graduated UCSD, was mainly composed of school projects. And I would say start early on building your portfolio, even if it's only compiled of your school projects, but make them good and think of the ways how you can build your own voice and present your portfolio.
Thank you, Chi. Shayna, what about you? How did you, so I know that you recently graduated and you completed the Academy program, but you're also now coming out with the start of your feature film. How did you find the time to work on that film while also doing other projects? What was that balance like?
It's interesting. I feel like USC and the way the program is structured, it just like it's perfect for building that network of people and for also building your portfolio. I find that I didn't have to go like outside of my classes to really build my portfolio. It was like the work I was doing was building it for me, which really helped. And like most of the films, actually all the films I've made have been through USC, right? And so they really helped me out. And I actually was an editor for a while. For the past 3 years, I've been working as a freelance editor. And I think that not only helped me like network with people, but it also taught me story really well. And so it helped me build up contacts enough that when I wanted to transition to directing, people were there and they knew my work ethic and they were like, yes, we can help you with that path.
Okay, so that is a great transition into our next question, actually. So you can go ahead and like build up on this question. How important is the idea of who you know in the communication and film and media industry? And what is the best way to network in the industry that you are specifically in? I think Shayna, you can like build on that since you
Okay.
have touch upon it, and then we'll go around.
Yeah, I think networking is huge, and that's like the number one reason I went to film school because I knew if I wanted to be in the film industry, I would need contacts. And as a person with a disability, like it's a lot harder for me to just move to a different city without knowing anyone and kind of just like working from the bottom up. I knew I needed more of a structure. And so I worked on so many people's projects in my cohort, right? Like everyone could tell you at any one time, I was working on like 4 or 5 projects. And I was very much like saying yes to most things for the first 2 years. I hardly said no to anything. I would make the time for it, which you got to balance your mental health. So take that into consideration. But because of that, like, again, I built such a network and I know, I basically know who to put in every position on the feature film because I've worked with so many people and I know their work ethic and yeah. So that's kind of my thing. And I think building a network is hugely important if you want to be a director.
Awesome. Okay, Chi, I saw you had something to say earlier.
Yeah, I would say the same. It is very important to make connections in this industry. Like literally yesterday, one of the guest speakers that came into our class said Hollywood is all about people, literally yesterday. So it really matters in this industry to connect with people because film and TV series or animation or whatever contents, they're created by people with collaboration. And people tend to go to those who they know that would do a good job, that are responsible, that can do things quick, then don't make trouble. So I guess it's not only important about who you know, but also like what you know and how you would present yourself and make sure you have a good work ethics. And I got a question about like my experience at AFI. I think it's quite similar to Shayna's experience at USC, the film programs. A lot of the time, I'm just, collaborating with different people, all the talented and creative people in the program, and work with different people on different projects. And education can help you meet a lot of people like them, and they can become very valuable connections to you. And so I'd say start with the people around you, your classmates, your peers, and the ones that you are collaborating with right now. Because who knows? Some of you might become a studio executive in the future, and also don't hesitate to offer help to your peers when you can.
Awesome. Thank you. That was very valuable. Esther, did you want to add anything at all?
I don't know. I agree. It's very, very important. I mean, like most of my jobs have been gotten through people, or like same with my film. It's kind of spread because somebody shows somebody else, and then somebody shows somebody else of that somebody else. So it's just everybody knows everybody. So you should just like, yeah, people are important.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one follow-up question with that. So I know, Esther, you said that before you post all your work on Instagram with everything. So I was just wondering, like between the three of you, what platform do you think is the most powerful way to gain exposure for your work? Like, is that Instagram or YouTube or Vimeo? I don't know. What do you think?
For me, I feel like it depends. I think it depends. It's hard. I feel like YouTube, not so much, at least not for animation. Instagram is more so for animation and like MoGraph, just because everything kind of lives on there because they're like these short format things. And when you're working in commercial and motion graphics, like Instagram works really great for it. Vimeo's like more professional. So like you put on like your long form projects onto Vimeo, and then your short form stuff goes to Instagram kind of thing. I don't know though. I feel like Instagram is now really hard to get a presence just because of the way the algorithm, or it's just like so saturated. It's mostly for like keeping up with connections in the industry. I find just having your own website and like portfolio on your website where everything's like really curated is probably the best bet.
Thanks. What about you, Shayna? What do you think on that?
Yeah, so for me, it's Facebook, and that's because USC had a Facebook page for our cohort and now for alumni. And then the Academy Gold program had a Facebook page where we'd get like all of our reminders. And because of that, like most of my contacts are on there. And so we would use that platform to communicate with each other and like reach out for jobs and stuff. But like that's mainly for people I know. But for Instagram, that's where I get the requests from people I don't know. So I feel like both are pretty valuable to me right now.
Chi, what platforms do you mostly use to expose your work?
I guess for me, it's a little bit different because producing, it's definitely about the work that you produce, but I guess it's also important to show your work ability as a producer, and it's not something that you can just simply display like visually, and it's more difficult for us. I would say LinkedIn. It sounds a little bit different, but I guess Jasmine connected with me through LinkedIn, so I guess my LinkedIn page worked. And going off of what Aster and Shayna was saying, I see social media nowadays, it's really important to just, promote yourself and build a profile of yourself. And Instagram, I would say it is easier on that platform. And Vimeo feels more professional and YouTube is more relaxed. And I guess there are, so many people out there on YouTube. So it could be a little bit more difficult for you to, become outstanding. Because I had that experience, posting videos or vlogs on YouTube, and I'd say it didn't go pretty well. So think about the platforms that fits your work. Yeah.
Thank you, Chi. I think those are all great pieces of advice, especially for those students who might have work just starting out but want to kind of get those connections. It's great for them to find a way to post their work online. And we just have one more question before we move to the Q&A. So what do you think is the best way to obtain funding and resources, which is like cameras or maybe like the people around you, just whatever that may be for your specific field for a project when you are just starting out? Shayna, would you like to start?
Yeah, so I have a lot of experience with this recently. So I think for me, one of the things that I'm so grateful for is smaller film festivals. I applied with my films to those and I got amazing contacts. And because of that, now like Black Magic Collective is helping me, and they're going to like help donate equipment to make this feature film. So I absolutely am so grateful to them for that. And then one thing I would say is grants. I've been applying like nuts to grants. We have some good news coming out in about 3 weeks, my crew and I. But again, it's using your network of people and also using social media to let people know what you're doing. Because if people, they like you, they support you. And if you post about what you're doing and what you're trying to do, people might have other avenues for you to achieve that. So look into specialized grants as well, because nowadays there's so many. And so, yeah, especially if your film has a minority as lead, there are options.
Thank you. Esther, what about you? How did you find resources or funding for maybe projects earlier in your career?
I actually haven't. So yeah, because I did my biggest project with school. So that was just that. And then, yeah, I guess I'm navigating that on my own, but like when I apply to film festivals as well, it's quite similar. It's just like figure out what you fit under and like milk that basically. Yeah. And there's like a lot of very niche specific things that you can just like peg yourself into, and it kind of works. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think definitely that advice is great because it really shows that you can take advantage of what you have access to while you're in school. So I feel like there's a big change. Once you're out of school, you don't have the same resources that you're given within your classes or with professors and everything. Chi, what about you? Where did you mostly find your resources?
Yeah, what I'm going to say actually comes from what I'm currently going through. I'm currently doing fundraising for my thesis project, and I learned that there's very few financiers out there who are willing to finance a short film because financiers, they're making investments in the films, and short films don't guarantee the return. So I would say an ideal setup for a project would be having the feature script ready, and there will be opportunities at the film festivals where financiers may be willing to finance a short version of the feature. And then basically you can use a short to prove your vision of the film, and by that, getting financing to shoot the feature that you want. And well, if you don't have the package like that, still don't worry. You can always use crowdfunding, and there are always like grants that you could apply for, such as Sloan Grants, which is a great resource for sci-fi projects. And also don't be afraid to do like cold calls to people or vendors. If you are a cinematographer, you could try to just call an equipment rental house and politely saying that you're a student just out of school doing a project and you have very little budget, and ask whether they can give you a student discount, and just try to get deals like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Those are all great pieces of advice. So thank you for sharing and your personal experience regarding them. So we're nearing the end. We're going to move into the Q&A session. And I have the very first question, which pertains to all of you so happening to be women. So the question is, as women filmmakers, have you faced any obstacles or prejudice in the industry? And if so, how did you handle it? Anyone?
I guess
Sorry.
no, sorry. I guess I can take it. So I faced discrimination and obstacles because I joke that I'm like a triple minority, right? I'm a woman, I'm Indian, and I'm in a wheelchair. So I feel like the discrimination for me has come mainly from the disability aspect. And I think how I've overcome that has been, again, like to get into a school like USC, right? Which I shouldn't have to do to prove my worth. But I did that in order for people in the industry to hopefully take me more seriously. But also just to make great films with great stories. Because I feel like now, with everything being so accessible online and so easily available, if you make something with a good story, like people see that first, right? People will see that first. You can send that out, and it doesn't mean like, yes, I'm a woman, here's my film. It's just like, here's a good film. So yeah, how I've been handling is it's like that. And I do know my worth, and I am a lot more confident in myself. Like when people say, what's your skill level? I don't say, oh, I'm proficient, kind of. No, I say like, I'm advanced. I know my stuff. And yeah.
Does anyone else want to add experiences? If not, we can move on to the next question too. Megan?
Yeah, we can move on to the next one. So we did have a question submitted from an audience member named Victor, and it says, have any of you been in a minority training program at major networks? If so, was it a token position or a real path towards decision making?
I'm actually in one right now. I'm in the CBS Pipeline Challenge. And because of COVID, like it kind of like stopped. So we're on like a big hiatus right now. But it wasn't a token position, and I genuinely feel like from my perspective and my limited experience, I feel like the studios that I've kind of like been worked with are genuinely trying to make a difference and to include minorities now. So yeah, that's a great program, by the way. So I don't know if there's an online application. I was recommended for it, but looking into those programs, I've heard good things from other friends who have been in them as well, especially from like HBO and other studios like that.
All right, thank you. And then we'll go on to our next question that we've received. This one was directed towards Esther. The question was, I'm sure you've gone into this already, but when entering the animation field, what did you emphasize in your portfolio? What kind of work and what technical skills?
Wait, what was the very, very first one?
The very first one was, what did you emphasize in your portfolio?
I think at least for my first like animation gig, I focused on animation. I guess it's really specifically like because there's so many different parts of like parts that make up animation. Like you could be a storyboard artist, you could be a character designer, you could be an animator. And so when I was applying for the job, it was an animation gig. So I just like focused. It's like a resume. You cater it. So like you cater your reel so that it's animation specific. It would also depend if you're applying for like film or if you're applying for TV. Usually those things are slightly different, but a lot of the time you would want to have like an acting piece and you would also want to have like big action kind of piece. So you want to be able to show that you can do like big things and subtle things. And you can also do like emotional things that are like, oh, maybe like kind of sad and teary and then like something happy. So that's like a lot of times what people do in for animation. After that, though, I kind of just how I do it now is that I try to do it so that it gets a good idea of the just like the stuff I do because I feel like my stuff has broadened now that I don't just do animation specifically. I also do boards and I also animate and I also draw. And so it's just kind of like I just draw. So I try to just showcase things that show my voice basically so that people can see like, oh, like she's got ideas and she also has the skills to like execute these ideas. And so I try to make pieces that at least when I'm thinking I'm going to make like a piece for my portfolio, I'm like thinking is I try to get a good concept and then I basically make it so that I show like I can put every part of the process in one piece so that when they look at that one piece they're already like, oh, she knows what she's doing basically. Yeah, kind of thing. So it's like kind of harder to explain, I guess, but I just try to do things that's like in my style specifically so that I can do it well and like make sure I showcase the actual solid animation foundational skills, and also have like a good idea behind it.
Thank you. The next question that we got, I think it's kind of for everyone, and it just asked, what is the best way to break into the film industry as it starts to slowly recover from the pandemic? So that could be even focused on maybe what your experience has been like kind of in the industry pre-pandemic and during the pandemic. Chi, do you want to start with what your experience has been like?
I guess I could speak toward more like my own experience as in the producing program. Before the pandemic, definitely there are more internship opportunities out there, and in all kinds of different positions. You can go into like a studio lot helping on a shoot, or you can be in an actual office. But right now, during the pandemic, most of the things have become remote. Like the one internship that I'm doing right now, it's completely remote. But I wouldn't discourage any of you to just look away from the remote opportunities. If you do want to work in a studio setup in the future, still try to apply to the ones that you are interested in if they have a remote program, because from my experience I'm still learning from my supervisors, from their feedbacks that they give me. I'm working as a development intern right now, so I'm reading materials and writing coverages, and that doesn't necessarily need me to be in the office to do that. So I guess figure out what you would like to do and still explore the career path. But I would say being in an actual office is a better choice because you can get to know people, and you can go around the office to know the actual setup of the company. And there are internship programs out there, like you can rotate in different departments, so you can explore different paths, like a producer, what you can do in the future as well. So there are like pros and cons, after pandemic, and definitely things are changing, but we can all get used to it, I guess.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Chi. Go ahead, Esther.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say the pandemic's kind of different for animation. I think when, at least from the people who I've heard, animation actually got more jobs because everything kind of crashed in film. So then they kind of wanted to see how they could like shift things and then make it remotely. Because animation has been kind of already been working remotely because you don't need to be like live on set. You just kind of like make it. So so that was kind of the weird thing with that. Um, yeah, which is just kind of curious. But also, I guess personally, yeah, it's the same. Like we just started working from home more, and that was just kind of, it's not the same as being in the studio. I think studio is always better just because then you can learn from people like organically versus like, hey, can I call you at 5 p.m. to like so that we can go through this? It's just like, hey, I see your work, please explain to me. So it's like a little bit, it's easier to learn, I think, in an actual studio setting. Yeah, but I think it's cool with at least our studio. We like right at the beginning of COVID, we started a short film that we kind of just made between projects throughout lockdown. So that was just like a very exciting thing that we did in like the kind of downtime that we had.
Yeah, it was same for or similar for editing. Because I was working as a freelance editor before COVID hit, and I didn't think I would be able to keep up with the jobs. Like I didn't think I'd be getting any. But it turns out a lot of people were like, man, what footage do I have at home since I can't go out and shoot? And so they ended up just contacting me to like put old footage that they had together. So they were getting some content out even in quarantine, right? And so, yeah, again, like animation editing can be easily done from home. But now when things open up, I mean, just apply to programs. That's what I think. I mean, Academy Gold went online this year for the first time. And I know a bunch of us were nervous, and it still ended up being a great program. And even though we weren't in the office, we ended up getting even closer to each other, I feel, had we like been in person. Because we felt like if we didn't take that time to communicate with each other through Zoom, like we were really missing out. So we worked extra hard to make those connections. And the other thing I would say is we're still in quarantine. So now's a really good time to reach out to people for like coffee chats. So if you have like mentors who you want to reach out to, do it now.
All right, awesome for everyone sharing that. And then I just have one last Q&A question. The question was, you can all answer this like kind of briefly because we're running out of time too. What are your ultimate career goals as creators?
I guess I can go first. For me personally, I'd like to work in a studio setting in the future, and I'd love to become a film development executive. It might be called differently at different studios, but basically it's someone who looks for good stories, ideas, and materials to develop and oversees the development of the film projects, and work with writers on the scripts and bring the project to greenlight. So actually at AFI, there was a class where our instructor would just bring in industry professionals in different tracks and positions and share their experience and taught us the structure of a film company or a studio. And so basically the ladder that one could climb up. So you can, if you ever want to work in a studio setting, you could start as an intern and maybe an assistant, and then move up as a coordinator, junior executive, and then senior executive, and then president of a department, and then vice president executive, and finally studio executive. And for me, with a goal of becoming a development executive in mind, I started to look for internships in the development department of different companies and studios. And right now, as I said before, I'm doing an development internship at a film company and reading materials and writing coverages. So for anyone who's interested in producing, I would encourage them to do the same. Just look for internships that you could be in an office or even remotely and learn about the actual skills that you would do in a job. Yeah.
Esther, did you want to answer next?
I don't think mine's like as concrete. I don't think I have like a definitive goal. I think it's just like I just want to make things that are cool and meaningful and impactful. So I think that whatever that might be at whatever time that is, like
Yeah.
it changes.
Yeah. That's a goal in itself.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think I'm there yet, but
Yeah.
like I think it's just like it's a journey.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And Shayna?
Yeah, so I want to be a writer director, but I eventually want to go into producing and just be able to have my own production company and like help first time filmmakers like make their content that, again, like Esther said, is meaningful, right?
Thank you. I just have one last question before we conclude today's webinar. What is one piece of advice or inspiration that you'd like to leave the viewers with before we go? Chi, would you like to start?
For sure. Just simply stick to your passion. Because I still remember when I was little, there was once I watched a movie with my parents in a theater, and when it ended, I said, I wish my name could be on the big screen one day. So I'm now still living my passion, and I hope you do that too.
Thank you. Esther, would you like to go next?
Mine is just exercise and get 8 hours of sleep every night. Like you'll feel good.
Thank you. Mental health is very important, so I definitely support that. And Shayna, lastly, what would you like to leave us with?
I would just say, like, don't be afraid. If there's a goal that you have, don't be afraid of that goal and don't let that fear bog you down.
Thank you. I think I loved how different each of your pieces of advice were, but it's honestly so inspiring to hear all of your incredible journeys and stories and how that you guys still have such amazing dreams ahead of you, even though you've accomplished so much at such a young age already. So, we will move on to just our conclusion here. I just want to thank everyone for joining us, both the audience and our amazing panelists. I hope that those watching have taken away some insight into how you can take the next steps in your career in film and media. And we have added everyone's contact information on a screen. I'm going to share that really quick here. Oh. Okay, so I encourage everyone watching to just screenshot this page and reach out to us. Check out Esther, Shayna, and Chi's amazing work. And if you want to get in contact them and hear more about their story, definitely encourage that. If we've learned anything today, it's that networking and making those connections is very important. And I think Jasmine was unfortunately disconnected just now. So I'm just going to end out the webinar. So the Take One Media class is nearing the end of their season, so spread the message to your friends and network that we'll be recruiting for our next class of interns. The internship will start in the spring, I believe. So if they're looking for an opportunity, like we've talked today about how important internships are, definitely reach out to like Jasmine or I, or look on ACMA's website to find more information on that. It's a great program. I've been the assistant instructor this season, and I went through the internship in the spring. So I definitely recommend it. The interns this season have made like such incredible work. You can check that out on the website. And I think that is about everything. We're just exactly on time. We have like less than a minute left. So I hope everyone watching has a great weekend. And I really hope that you all learned something and were as inspired as I was today. Thank you, everyone. Bye. I'm not sure how to end.